Something unusual is happening today, yet few are willing to name it. If you look carefully, you will see it everywhere. The most conscious, self-aware, and spiritually awake people are disappearing. Not with loud rebellion. Not with dramatic announcements. But quietly, almost invisibly. They are withdrawing from careers that once defined them. They are abandoning social media platforms that thrive on noise. They are walking away from relationships that no longer nourish truth. Some are leaving cities altogether, moving into forests, mountains, or small villages. Others remain present in society but participate less and less, almost like ghosts observing from the edges. Carl Jung foresaw this. He knew that when the collective unconscious grows too heavy, the most awake individuals must step back to survive. This exodus is not a collapse. It is a transformation in motion, a silent preparation for something deeper. If you have felt the pull to step away from people, work, or culture, you may have also felt guilt. Society tells us that withdrawal is weakness. But Jung would disagree. He taught that most of humanity lives inside the collective unconscious, a vast sea of archetypes, instincts, and inherited patterns. People swim in it, repeating habits without reflection. But when someone awakens, they rise above that sea. They see the machinery behind the curtain. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The endless cycle of consumerism. The way conversations remain at the surface, avoiding what matters most. The obsession with status, likes, and appearances. For an awakened individual, this world begins to feel unbearable. Every office meeting feels like theater. Every casual interaction feels scripted. Every day asks you to wear a mask instead of being your true self. Remaining inside this system becomes exhausting, even dangerous for the soul. Withdrawal becomes not avoidance, but survival. Jung once observed, the world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you. For the awakened, this is more than a saying, it is daily reality. Those who begin to step out of the collective unconscious no longer fit the expected roles. They shine light on what others want to keep hidden. And that is dangerous, because society has a shadow, the repressed side of the psyche, filled with all the fears, envies, hatreds, and impulses people refuse to acknowledge. When someone carries awareness, that collective shadow is projected onto them. Suddenly, they become the problem. The strange one. The outsider. Entire groups project their unresolved fears onto the few who dare to live authentically. Perhaps you have felt this. You speak truth and the room falls silent. You question a norm and others label you rebellious, arrogant, or too intense. Your existence alone unsettles those who have not faced themselves. This hostility wears down the spirit. Over time, awake individuals learn, silence protects energy, solitude heals wounds. They withdraw not because they despise people, but because constant projection is unbearable. Carl Jung described the persona as a mask, the part of us that plays roles for society, the worker, the polite citizen, the charming friend. It is not inherently bad. We all need a persona to function. But when the persona replaces the authentic self, life becomes hollow. For many, the persona is enough. They go to work, smile at colleagues, play their roles, and never ask deeper questions. But for the spiritually awake, the mask begins to suffocate. Pretending feels like betrayal. Imagine waking every morning and putting on a costume, knowing it hides your real face. Imagine sitting in meetings where people nod about numbers or gossip, while your inner world is alive with questions about meaning, purpose, and the soul. Imagine laughing politely while inside you ache for depth and truth. At some point, the conscious individual cannot continue the charade. They refuse to reduce themselves to a role. They refuse to sacrifice authenticity at the altar of conformity. So they step back. Away from the stage, away from the script. They choose the risk of solitude over the certainty of falseness. And in that quiet withdrawal, they begin to rediscover who they truly are. Awake individuals often describe a strange fatigue. Not physical tiredness alone, but a deep psychological exhaustion. Jung understood this well. When you live consciously in an unconscious environment, every interaction becomes an energy exchange. You notice the unspoken emotions in the room. You feel the projections directed at you. You sense the collective shadow pressing down like heavy air. It is like being a finely tuned instrument inside a factory of clashing metal. The noise rattles your core. Over time, the sensitive instrument cannot keep vibrating without damage. Jung observed in his patients that many fell ill, mentally or physically, when they ignored this truth. Depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue, these were not personal failures, but signs of being misaligned with their environment. The soul was signaling, you cannot stay here without harm. Have you noticed how much lighter you feel after a day in solitude compared to a day immersed in noise? That is not coincidence. It is survival. The body, the psyche, and the spirit conserve energy by withdrawing. This is why many spiritually awake people disappear. They do not hate others. They are simply unable to thrive in environments that drain them. Their silence is medicine. Their solitude is preservation. Jung himself knew the necessity of withdrawal. After his famous break with Freud in 1913, he entered a deep personal crisis. His inner world flooded with visions, dreams, and archetypal images. To most, this might have looked like madness. To Jung, it was initiation. He withdrew from public life. He stopped lecturing, stopped publishing, and spent years in what he later called his confrontation with the unconscious. He built his tower at Bollingen, a stone retreat on the shores of Lake Zurich. There, he lived close to nature, carved symbols into stone, and recorded his visions in what became known as the Red Book. This was not escapism. It was integration. Jung was processing the depths of his psyche, wrestling with myth, symbol, and shadow until something new was born. And when he returned, he did not rejoin society as before. He returned transformed, bringing forth ideas, individuation, archetypes, the collective unconscious, that reshaped psychology forever. Jung's life reminds us, withdrawal is not the end of contribution. It is the preparation for it. The hermit years at Bollingen were not wasted. They were the furnace where his deepest insights were forged. So when spiritually awake people vanish today, they are following a pattern Jung himself lived. They are not abandoning the world. They are preparing to return with something the world desperately needs. In Jungian psychology, this stage of life aligns with the hermit archetype. Across cultures and myths, the hermit is the figure who retreats into the wilderness, carrying only a lantern of inner light. To the crowd, the hermit looks like a deserter. But in truth, the hermit withdraws to protect the sacred flame. He knows that wisdom is not born in noise but in silence. He knows that to see clearly, one must step away from the crowd. Think of monks who left cities to meditate in mountains. Think of prophets who wandered deserts before returning with revelations. Think of Jung, carving his visions into stone walls. All carry the hermit archetype. Today, many spiritually awake people are living out this same role, even if they don't call it that. They quit their high-paying jobs, sell possessions, move into cabins or minimalist apartments. Some simply unplug from endless online chatter. They live more slowly, more deliberately. And here's the paradox, they are not withdrawing from life, but entering it more deeply. By leaving the artificial, they return to the real. By stepping away from endless activity, they find authentic being. This archetypal withdrawal is not selfish. It is necessary. Without the hermit, the world would lose its wisdom keepers. Without the retreat, there would be no return. So what actually happens in this solitude? Why is disappearance so crucial to the spiritually awake? Jung called the process individuation, the journey of becoming the whole self, integrating shadow, persona, and the deeper layers of the unconscious. In solitude, the awake person finally has space to listen. Dreams are not drowned out by endless conversation. The psyche speaks through symbols, archetypes, and inner images. What was repressed begins to surface. Pain long avoided comes into awareness. Hidden gifts begin to awaken. This can be difficult, Withdrawal is not always peaceful. Sometimes solitude feels like confrontation with demons. Jung himself faced visions of floods, serpents, and cosmic battles. But through facing them, he found integration. The spiritually awake person uses solitude to gather the scattered pieces of the self. They learn to hold their shadow instead of projecting it. They discover authenticity beyond persona. They find meaning in archetypal stories that connect them to humanity as a whole. And slowly, transformation occurs. Think of a caterpillar that disappears into the cocoon. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening, just absence. But inside, every cell is rearranging. The old form dissolves. A new form is constructed. This is the true nature of the disappearing spiritually awake person. They are not lost. They are in metamorphosis. Their retreat is not the end of their story. It is the rewriting of it. When they emerge, they are no longer who they were. They return as something entirely new. Here is the part most people overlook: the hermit does not stay away forever. In myth and psychology alike, withdrawal is followed by return. In Joseph Campbell's language, it is the hero's journey, descent, transformation, return with the boon. Jung understood the same pattern. The conscious individual, after undergoing individuation, often feels called to re-enter the world, not as before, but in a new form. When awakened people return, they rarely go back to the mainstream. They do not rejoin the old systems of shallow chatter and persona. Instead, they reappear at the edges, as artists, healers, teachers, guides. They bring something society didn't even know it was missing. Think of Jung after Bollingen. Think of monks who returned as wise elders. Think of modern-day seekers who leave corporate jobs, only to re-emerge as writers, therapists, or spiritual mentors. The disappearance was never abandonment. It was architecture. It was the laying of foundations in silence so that a new form of contribution could arise. And this is happening now. Across the world, countless individuals are in their hermit phase. They are writing journals no one has read yet. They are painting images that will one day speak to thousands. They are meditating in silence, gathering wisdom that will be medicine for future generations. If you have disappeared, know this: your return will not be the same as your departure. You will not come back as the person who left. So if you have been withdrawing, disconnecting, or quietly fading from society, remember this: you are not failing. You are not broken. You are not antisocial. You are following a pattern as old as humanity, one Jung understood deeply. Disappearance is not rejection. It is preparation. It is part of the archetypal path of individuation, the journey to become who you truly are. Your solitude is not empty. It is alive with transformation. What looks like silence is the psyche speaking. What feels like loss is the clearing of ground for new growth. Yes, others may not understand. They may call you strange, cold, or distant. But Jung would remind you, the path of consciousness is not walked by crowds. It is walked by individuals who dare to step away, even when misunderstood. And one day, you will return. Not as who you were, but as who you were meant to be. Perhaps as an artist whose work carries unseen depth. Perhaps as a healer who understands suffering. Perhaps simply as a presence of authenticity in a world drowning in masks. If this message resonates, take it as reassurance. You are not alone in this path. Thousands are feeling the same pull, the same exhaustion, the same call to retreat. And all of you are part of a larger movement, a hidden wave of transformation. Jung believed the fate of humanity rests not on collectives, but on individuals who awaken. If you are disappearing now, you are part of that unfolding. You are preparing something. So honor your path. Trust your retreat. And when you are ready, return with your gift. And if you wish to keep exploring Jung's wisdom, subscribe, share this message, and join this community of seekers. Because the journey is not over. It is just beginning.